Hi, this is Angel. This is my 18th day in a row making a video like this. So, today, something that came up for me was being environmentally sensitive, being very sensitive to how things are, how things like feel in a space, how things feel around me, sometimes how people feel around me, but also just like how I feel in a space or like where I feel good and like how that really like affects like my day to day. Um Something that I was experiencing like before making this was like feeling like when I had clutter in a space or when things like didn't feel like organized in a certain way, like it made me start to feel um like not just disarray like in the space but like on the inside. It's like I started to feel like affected by my space, and I think it's like very powerful when we can kind of like separate our minds from like our physical environment, like being able to not just like dissociate or like escape from it, but feeling like we can work with what we have, even if it's like a small space, even if it's like a few resources. Like if we're able to work with what we have, then things start to feel different, like they start to shift. A good example of this that I thought of too was like I watched a video on it was kind of like a financial video, but I think that it had like a lot of practices that seem and like ideas that seem like almost more spiritual too. And it was talking about like two vendors. One vendor was feeling very like discouraged of what they were selling, and even though they had like a large quantity, they just felt like it wasn't moving fast enough, or like they felt like it wasn't they weren't like being able to sell as much as like they wanted to. And the second vendor had less inventory, but what they did was they polished each oh, it was like fruit vending, so they like polished each piece of fruit, arranged it in like a very nice way, and started to kind of like incorporate like allowing people to try it, like being more interactive. And it made me start thinking about like how space is like that too, like, and resources are like that too. And I do think that like, sometimes there's different reasons why like something might feel a type of way. Like I thought about like how my space was starting to feel like a little bit chaotic, and I was like, well, that must just be like a reflection of how I was feeling. Like I was doing a lot of back-to-back activities and I wasn't tending to my space. I wasn't like giving it very much like time or attention. I was just kind of like going on to the next thing. And that was just making me think about how like it's the same with activities that we're doing. It's the same with like a lot of things. And it's the same with like just giving anything like the necessary time and attention. So I brought up like the example of like the vendors, and um it really like made a lot of sense to me. Like something just kind of like clicked when I was listening to it, because I was like, well, that makes so much sense, because it's like if I have a small space, right? Like, or if I'm like working with limited resources, I could spend my time just kind of like feeling down about that, or like feeling like being in like that sense of like lack, or just feeling like, well, I don't have like enough space anyway, or like, I'm just waiting to the next thing. But if I was like to shift my perspective to like, well, I'm going to work with the space that I do have, I'm going to try to rearrange things and like keep testing things out until they like work in a way that makes sense for me. And like just like assessing the resources and kind of like thinking of like new ways to do things, I've recently been doing this like with my wardrobe too. Like I was kind of feeling like, oh, like I don't have like a lot of clothes, or like, just that continuous like feeling of like lack, like, oh, I don't have enough of something, or I don't know like how to move forward without XYZ thing in projects, like in a lot of different ways, or just like in the feeling too. And it was making me start to shift a little bit, because I'm like, okay, well, I do have some things, I do have some resources that I'm working with. So, like, how can I do this a little differently? And that led me to watching like a post that was talking about how to like wear things differently. And I was like, yeah, like that makes a lot of sense. Like, that's really cool. Like, thinking about how to be creative in this way with like just really working with what you have. Like, if you are only working with like a limited number of clothes, it's like just being able to wear something differently, like rearranging the combination of things that you put together with it, like accessorizing, like things can look very different based on like the combination. And that idea kind of led me to like associating it to something else, which was like music. Like, I was thinking about like how playing the guitar or like playing any instrument, it's like you are working with the same notes but in a different progression of chords, and that's what's making something like sound different. That's what like allows me to play something and it is a different song, even if it has like one of the same chords. It's like a different combination. And even the way like strum patterns are, or like the timing of a beat, it like really changes the genre, like how something feels, like the experience of it. And that made me go back to like space. I'm just like, yeah, like having space, it's like if you have a small space, anything that is like out of place starts to make it feel like crowded or like overwhelmed. But if you rearrange things in a certain way, if things are like upkept, or there's just like a simplicity to the process, then the space doesn't feel so small anymore. It like feels like open, it feels like there's movement. And I think like that having that like sense of movement in our like physical environment, it's very clearing to the mind. It's like very like makes it so that like we can create much easier. And I think the same is true for some people too. It's like this is really just my perspective. Like, I think that some people like they really enjoy having a lot of things in a space, like just kind of like feeling like surrounded by things. And I definitely have like my like trinkets and art and like things that like I really enjoy just like viewing. But I think like when I'm in a space that feels like things aren't arranged in a way that I guess like makes sense to me, or like in a way that arranged in like a way that feels like a lot of flexibility, like a lot of movement, it can I become like sensitive to it, and it starts to feel like it's something that begins to almost like trigger a response. I don't know if it's like a result of something. I haven't like made that connection yet, but I do think that like when I'm feeling that environment and like that sensitivity to my environment, it definitely like affects my emotions. Like, I know that much, that it's like when things start to feel like closed in a way, or like I'm not feeling the flow, like the rhythm of a space, like being able to like move through it with ease, I get very like sensitive to it. And I think that it starts to bring up like different emotions that make me recognize like, okay, like this is very important to me, like the the way that like a space feels, like the way that it's organized, the way that like I, even if I'm like not working with like so many resources, it's like the way that those resources are implemented and like arranged have a really big impact in being able to like move forward, and also being able to like appreciate things. Like again, like with the clothes, it's like, you know, you could have just a few items, but it's like the way that we wear something too, the vibe that we give it. Like same with music, same with art. It's like something can be very simple but like very expressive. Something can be very complicated, very complex, but still very organized. And I think like that feeling of things just kind of like clicking, things just kind of like flowing, it encourages like more creativity. In my case, like I feel like that's kind of like what works for me, is like feeling like, okay, I'm gonna work with what I have to the best way that I can work with it. And feeling like that's enough, I think it starts to make me feel like, just like I was saying, like I become sensitive to things. It's like, it's the opposite is true too. It's like when things do feel that way, when something can be made to feel like it's enough, when resources are made to feel like it's enough, it gives me those feelings too. Like it makes me feel like, okay, well, then I must be enough. I must have everything I already need to be able to do the things that I want. And I've heard like that idea a lot too. And like I love it every time I hear it. Just feeling like if you feel called to do something, if you have the desire to do something, that means you already have the resources, the ability, whatever you need to be able to like take that first step. And I think that's so true. Like, I think that anything that I want to do, it's like, even if I don't have all of the tools, equipment, like, you know, whatever I'm feeling like I'm lacking in that moment, that doesn't mean that I don't still already have everything I need to take at least the very first step. And being able to like reiterate that to myself, it makes me start to look for those resources, those ideas that allow me to have the first step. Like my mind becomes open to it because I'm starting to see things as like resources, as and resources aren't just physical. Like sometimes it's like time resources, like the amount of time we're able to give something. It's not just like financial. Sometimes it's like the skills that we have, like our ability to do something. There's been so many times where like I have thought about spending money on something, and then I kind of like took a pause to ask myself, like, is this something that I can do on my own? And if the answer is yes, and like I feel like it's more productive than like being able to pay for a service, I will do it. And then there are other times when like I can assess and I'll say like, you know, maybe I could have this, maybe I could learn this skill, maybe I could do this thing, but in this moment, being able to have help from someone or pay for a service might make more sense like in the long run. And I think like a lot of this kind of goes into like strategy too, just like strategizing like what is the best way to go about something. And I've also gotten caught up in like a cycle of feeling like I'm almost like over strategizing, like I'm trying to make everything fit so perfectly like a puzzle. And I think that's where like the control gets let go a little bit, because it's like if something doesn't work out the way that I think it should, that doesn't mean that there's not a good way of doing it. You know, it's like being able to let go. And like I talked about like trust in the previous video. It's like having that trust that like if something is not working out, then like something else will be revealed, or it just hasn't like come full circle yet. It's just in a period where that feels like a little bit resistant. But having some resistance and like having challenges doesn't mean that we're like not going in the direction that we want. It just means that like we're on the part that's an uphill and the next part might be a valley going down, like it's just about where we are in the process. And going back to like physical space and like how we feel in physical spaces, I think like being able to nurture that and like nurture the spaces that we're in and like the things that feel like good to us, the things that like encourage like creativity for us, I feel like that helps the momentum. Like it helps us feel like okay, like we're in a we're in a headspace that the physical space is supporting, and being able to just like really work with what you have. Like if it's if it feels limited, if there's only a few things, it's like try something a different way, try using the same thing in a different way, like experimenting with that and just kind of like feeling out like what works, like what's working and what's giving you like that push, that momentum into like the next step of whatever thing that you're working on, whatever project that you're doing. um yeah, I think like a lot of people are like just like naturally like environmentally like empathetic, like environmentally like sensitive. And I think that it really helps to just like have a sense of like flow, like being able to just like arrange things in a way and like feel like we're utilizing the things that we have, even if it feels like few things, it's like utilizing it in a way that feels very productive, that feels like it's working for us, and it's allowing us a kind of like mental space, like a mental freedom, because it's not like more things that we have to consume or like internalize. Like there's a lot of things, there's a lot of ways, like especially if I'm dealing with mental like things that I'm like, oh, like I have to-do lists, or like I have things like to manage, or I have like things that I'm like putting off in some way. It's like being able to take care of my surroundings and kind of like feel like that's one thing that like I don't have to think about anymore. I don't have to like keep on my mind. It allows me to just kind of like go through the list of like what I need to do with some more ease, and that being kind of like the first thing, like being able to go into like a sense of cleansing, whether that's like the space, my physical self, like feeling that sense of like cleansing before I start like bringing in new things, and just kind of like assessing what I no longer need, what needs movement, what needs clearing, so that I can continue on and like be able to like go on to the next thing, whether that's something physical or even just like mentally being able to have like that ease of mind where I'm not being overstimulated by things, and just being able to like ground myself again so that I can prepare for what's next, so that I can feel like I'm able to move with a sense of ease. I'm able to have that pause like before I take actions. And it's like a way to be able to have like kind of a meditative state, like being able to think about other things, to be able to have like a freedom in how we move and like what we're allowing into our energies and like into our mental space, because there is like a sense of movement, there's like a sense of like things have been cleansed away from us, so we have like space now. Yeah, that's what came up for me today. I think something that also helps too is like being able to go to places where there's a lot of open space. Like I had mentioned previously how like going to like a park was really healing for me. Going to like bodies of water is like very healing to me. Being able to do that, I think like especially when we're in environments that are like very enclosed or like feel like very like the space starts to like feel like we're indoors a lot. Like I think that can also be like overstimulating to me. It can like activate like my nervous system in a way. And when I'm in places that feel like very open, like where I can see like a lot of open sky, or when I can like experience nature, like see animals, things like that, it's like it feels very calming to the nervous system again. And it feels like I am being like cleansed, like, but like in an emotional and like mental way. And sometimes even physical, like being able to have access to like air, like just being close to trees where you can like breathe a lot more. I feel like it starts to open things up, like open up our minds, and also like open up our emotional selves too, like open up our hearts in a way where we can just feel like the flow of nature. And that really encourages us to like be in that flow state, like in other ways too, like in relationships, in the way that like our resources flow to us as well, like being able to see how animals are being taken care of like by the land, being able to see how nature just like happens without us needing to do anything. I feel like that's like really encouraging to me too, that it's like there's resources all around us, and we can like take that in, you know, we can like have that be part of our part of like our gratitude, and like part of our way of feeling like we can expand because things are expansive like around us. um I feel very fortunate to like even be able to like go out, you know, be able to like go outside. And I know that like some environments aren't as easy to do that, but I think that's where like really working with what we have and trying to like see things from a different perspective and see things from like a way that feels like we are we are doing everything within our control to make things a little bit more easeful, like a little bit more beautiful, um a little bit more in a flow, a little bit more like in a way that makes us feel like we've done what we could until we can go on and try something new, or until something else comes. Like we've put in our energy into trying to like improve even a little bit. So that's what came up for me today. I hope that you have a very peaceful, very good day, and talk soon. Thanks for chatting.